All right.
I haven't left the house much.
Yeah, neither have we. Well, no. Start, because I was going to ask. I was going to open the show. That was my question.
Okay. Well, then let me start. So you can ask your question that I think I can give you an answer to now, and then give you the same answer. I have
a segue.
So you're not really going to ask me the question out of concern. It's the shape of direction you're going.
Correct.
You have a story you want to tell.
No.
But instead of just telling it, you're going to act like it's a banter with me.
Yes.
All right.
Isn't that what I always do?
I was just about to ask, is that what you always do?
That's what I always try and do.
1993?
Yeah. Since 1993, exactly.
Wow. Huh. Well, maybe suddenly I've gone out a lot, and that'll ruin your story.
That's fine too, I think.
I haven't gone anywhere.
Okay.
Since 1993. Hey everyone ever, and welcome to 20th Century Pop.
Really?
Here's why. Here's why I'm stopping. I was so set to go, hey there everybody, for some reason. And to push through with it. But I didn't. But then in my head, I heard, hey there everybody. And I was like, I'm not Kermit the Frog. That would be a dumb way to start. Only because I don't. Hey there. Yeah. Hey, it's bad enough. Hey, everyone ever is bad enough. It's dumb enough. But if it's like, hey there, everybody. What the fuck? Anytime, but I haven't gone 115 episodes plus bonus episodes. Yeah, that would have been dumb.
That would have been a weird. Yeah.
Weird or dumb? I think it would have thrown everything off.
It would have. I would have seen it as weird. You
would have.
But I would have carried on. I was ready to carry on.
I didn't do it. So of course you're ready to carry on.
I guess that's
what are you,
true.
Psychic?
I guess that's true.
On the astral plane I could have done it. Or here. All right. Well then we'll do it for real.
All right.
Hey there everyone. Sorry.
Oh, man.
That time I forgot how it went.
And how microphones work, I think.
What was that?
And how microphones work. You forgot how microphones work. You got closer, didn't you?
Did I? Oh, that's because I was laughing at my stupidity.
That's stupidity.
I should probably type this out. No, I'm good. Hey everyone ever, and welcome to 20th Century Pop, the show where we try to understand the present while living in the past. My name is Tim Blevins.
And I am Bob Canning.
Is that making fun of me? Is that mocking me?
It was mocking a little bit.
What, because I said my name?
Well, I mean, I can sense that you're trying very hard to say the words that you're supposed to say, and not additional words.
And not medicinal words?
Hey, it's there.
That's true. I wanted to vary it up. Well, that's the trick with having a mechanical opening. Is the moment it's easy to do. It's a good, it's mechanical. It's an opening thing. It's like, that way we know how to start. But every now and then to really think about it, you can think about it too much.
Right.
And you want to just what am I doing here?
No, you're just explaining how we open the show, much like you do when we close the show.
Mm-hmm. Oh shit! So now I'm doing a bit on both ends. God.
Hey, that's all right though. That's all right. It's been 3 weeks, Tim.
But I mean, not for the listeners. Since we've recorded, sure. But
how long has it been for the listeners? Will it have been 2 weeks?
There was a rerun episode 2 weeks ago. Last week there was an episode for a show that didn't happen, and I guess that's 3 weeks. I guess you're exactly right.
I'm exactly right as usual.
That was more at the end of your sentence than what I said, but that's okay.
That is okay. How are you, by the way?
I'm
in these
good.
Past 3 weeks?
I'm pretty good. I've got some allergies going on, but I'm other than that, can't think of anything that would be in any way impacting me. I'm good. I'm pretty good. Good. I'm good. Hey, I'm good.
Good.
Pretty good, Bob.
Yeah.
Pretty good on this end of the microphone. Yep, the good end.
The good end. Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're good.
Yeah.
It's good to be good.
There's a bumper sticker. You drive a car. You can put that on your car?
No, I'm not going to put anything on this car. I had some things on my other car, but this car is newer. And
That's the opposite of a Huey Lewis song, huh?
Say that again.
Good is good.
That's bad is bad.
Yes, that's what the opposite would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not exactly, but we won't get into that.
That is exactly what an opposite is.
Well, but no, bad is bad, whereas good is still good. I don't know. I'd have to get a chart.
What's the opposite of good again?
I'd have to get a chart for that. Because bad, when you say bad, he means that it's good. But sometimes when you say that it's good, it's actually bad.
Things going pretty bad for you?
Things have not been great.
Have they been good?
They've been okay.
Okay.
I'll say they're okay.
Nothing I said.
Moving on, Tim, I was going to ask you if you've been getting if you've been getting out lately.
Oh, this is a different show. Continuing with the show. Have I gotten out recently? Is that what you're asking?
That's what I was asking. Have you been out?
I was out briefly
out?
today. We get the restaurant that we used to go to that now is working almost like a market, and we get some nice groceries from them, and I go and pick them up. They bring them outside, I pick them up. So I went out for that. But other than that, no, I am not getting the oxygen, sunlight, or exercise my body needs. Requires.
It's been tough. How do you keep yourself occupied during that time? I know you're working on a bunch of podcasts, different shows other than this one.
Yeah. Am I promoting them now?
No, you can if you want to.
Oh, because one of them didn't happen. One was supposed to happen this week and didn't. A 5-day-a-week Our Replacements podcast was supposed to start Monday, but that didn't happen.
But it could still, right? You're still working on it.
It couldn't still happen Monday. That's in the past.
Could still happen eventually.
But no, what am I doing? I work on some stuff. I watch TV. I read digital comic books.
Nice. I wait out some apocalyptic scenarios. I read the news. Sometimes I go on Instagram. I could keep going, but I don't. I'm assuming. I'm guessing. I know because you told me. There's a segue here. Why do you ask? Well, I was just saying there are some things. Something just moved in my room. Sorry about that.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Are you afraid of no ghosts or afraid of that ghost?
I'm afraid of that ghost.
Yeah, I'm afraid of some ghosts.
But we've been trying to keep ourselves occupied. You know, I've got the kids here, so they do school.
Yeah, I never thought they were somewhere else. But
about a half
I didn't think they're back in the pen.
The segue I'm trying to get to, my oldest daughter has been doing. She used to do Dungeons and Dragons once a week with some friends at a comic book store.
Oh, is that where she played them, at a comic book store?
Yeah, they had, it's actually a gaming and comic book store, and they had a lot of extra space, and they rented out.
You call that a comic book store. That's
gaming.
Perfectly fine.
But she's been doing it online now.
She's been playing online?
Yeah, with her friends. They do a Google chat, and they all play. And it takes up the second half of her day. They've done it like twice a week, at least early on during this pandemic. They've gone down to once a week because I think it was getting a little exhausting for them.
Sure. So she likes role-playing games. Did you play? You and I never did, but did you play role-playing games at all growing up? Dungeons and Dragons, any of the dice games?
No, I never played Dungeons and Dragons. There was a game, if I'm remembering it correctly, I think it was called Hero's Quest, which was more of a board game version of a Dungeons and Dragons type game. The board could be manipulated. You could move it around in different ways. You could set it up. It had all these 3-dimensional parts. Like you could put a door on a certain square, and you could change it every time. So it wasn't quite Dungeons and Dragons, but
what was it called? I
think it was called Hero's Quest.
That's cool. Were you a fantasy fan? Is that what drew you to it?
I was kind of a fan of this kind of stuff. I liked, if there was a B movie on that kind of was in this realm, I would watch that. And certainly I played this game. My friend Jeff Blehar had this game, and we must have played it 3 or 4 times, but in a short amount of time, within a couple months, we kept coming back to it, and then we sort of went on to other things.
Is it cool that you're watching your daughter play this game? I assume that I would have a hard time playing the game if people were around, but are you getting any bit of how into it she is, how her friends interact with it? Because I'm so happy role-playing games still exist because I loved them growing up.
Yeah, I think my daughter, she kind of, I don't know if she's fully I think she wings it more than you're supposed to sometimes.
Well, that's great though.
As the dungeon master. So I don't know how much prep she does it as the dungeon master, but her campaigns are 4 hours. Like they play for 4 hours once
amazing?
a week now.
I think that's awesome. And I do wish I had that focus sometimes to do it, because I think it'd be a cool social outing. I probably don't have the patience for it anymore, sadly. But it's nice to be talking role-playing games. There's a reason, right? You're very
always
clever
a reason,
with your
Tim. I never ask you a question without a reason.
No, we really don't talk if it's not about the podcast. What? Why ask me that thing? Why?
Well,
why
because on today's episode, we're going to be talking about a movie that I had never seen until you told me, and I wasn't even. Well, I was peripherally aware of its existence before I knew it existed.
Huh?
But you
You're
asked,
in a loop of some kind.
Yeah, you wanted me to watch a movie this week for our episode called Mazes
I watched it too, by the way.
and Monsters. Yes, but
What was it called?
Mazes and Monsters.
Yes, a TV movie actually, 1982.
Yeah, which I didn't realize until I was watching it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how were you aware of this before you were aware of it? If I'm quoting.
Well, there was a time I can't tell. I must have been in college, but there was a time that I was flipping around channels and I came across a familiar face. I saw Tom Hanks. It was young Tom Hanks.
Turner and Hooch's Tom Hanks.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, is this Bachelor Party? No, it's not that. Is it Bosom Buddies? No, I don't think it's that. And he's sitting there. He's out by a pond or a lake, in my memory, and then these kids come up to him and talk to him, and then it just gets weird because he starts, and I'm kind of spoiling it because this is the end of the movie that I saw. He starts talking in this just about this nonsensical stuff that the other kids don't seem to understand, but then they do, and then it fades out and the movie's over. And I was always curious, and this was pre-internet, the internet existed, but I didn't have complete access to it. I think you had access to it in your room. But I didn't know what movie it was. And I've always kind of tried to check it out and see what it is. And as I was watching this for the first time, I was like, you know what? I think this is that movie.
Oh, okay. So even up until seeing it, you had no idea.
Yeah, not until the very end. I even said to my wife, I said, hey, if this movie ends with Tom Hanks by a lake, then I've just answered a puzzle that's haunted me for 20 years.
What do you guys think happened?
One of the players Robbie played with got carried away and killed him.
Well, that's kind of far out.
Mazes and Monsters is a far-out game. Swords, poison, spells, battles, maiming, killing.
Hey, it's all imagination.
Is it?
Mazes and Monsters was a 1982 TV movie about what? 4 college friends.
Yeah.
Kind of obsessed with role playing, right? And Tom Hanks he was the main character. He's a character named Robbie. I was surprised that a lot of people, I posted a little bit before recording that we're going to talk about this week. A lot of people know this movie. A lot of people seem to remember this being on TV, seem to have seen it, if not in its original airing in a rerun. And a lot of people, the comment I kept getting was that people were terrified of this movie. People were shaken and scared.
Well, the people you're talking about were kids at the time. If they saw it.
Probably, yeah. Our age or maybe a little older than us, yeah.
Yeah, so that will affect you. I mean, there are some creepy things in this, depending on your level of exposure to creepiness. If this is one of your early exposures to creepiness, there's some creepy stuff.
It's a TV movie. How creepy were TV movies in the 80s? Like, were TV movies something you watched in the 80s? Do you remember the whole... Because it was kind of a phenomena at that point, I feel like.
I don't know that I did really watch too many. Oh. There were a few, I'm sure.
They were the Lifetime movie of their days.
Yeah, but no, I was more of a... what was it? The Sunday night mystery movies, where it would switch between a Columbo one week and a BL Striker the next week, and then something else the following week, and then back to Columbo. I watched those more than anything that I can remember.
BL Striker, was that Burt Reynolds?
It was. Great job.
Great job, Burt Reynolds. Well, okay, but this movie, so why you're agreeing that it could be scary for kids? What's it about? Let's do that and then kind of get into it.
Yeah, you said it was about these college kids that were into a Dungeons and Dragons type role playing game, actually called Mazes and Monsters.
Right. I'm sorry, the title of the movie. Yes.
Yeah, and it's just kind of following them going through it. They're all struggling with various issues. As we meet them, we find that their family lives are kind of screwed up. So you can see that maybe they were drawn to this game because their family life, their reality was a little messy. And so they've
what
gone. What
age are we talking? Is this like a second year of college, maybe? Because we've got Tom Hanks.
It's at least a second, because Tom Hanks had been previously kicked out of college, the previous college he'd gone to. He's new to this college.
Robbie, his character's name is Robbie.
His character is Robbie. We also meet JJ. Wearer of hats.
Yes, probably too many hats.
He starts the movie wearing a Viking helmet, correct?
That or a Kaiser helmet, some sort of a pointy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Helmet. It's like a metal military helmet.
Yeah.
And nobody references it. Nobody says a thing about it.
Well, because he's quirky. We're supposed to see that JJ is quirky. He's younger. It took me a little while to realize this. He's a high school age kid who skipped some grades into college. Yeah,
that's kind of just thrown in there at one point. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sure.
Don't know that it matters necessarily.
Well, I think it matters because otherwise his behavior, we'll need to get into it, because I didn't like this character, but also I had trouble with this character. Like, I thought he was poised to be the main troubled character.
He's the first person we meet in the movie,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
And you're right. He has a weird relationship with his mom. His mom has redesigned his bedroom with all these bird cages.
No, not bird cages. It's basically very minimalistic.
Oh, okay. Bird cages are something else.
Yes, the bird cage is his. He has a bird.
Right, a speaking bird, a speaking role.
Yeah. And so, basically his mom has done this to his room every time he leaves for college or leaves for whatever. She redoes his room in a style that he does not like, and he feels invisible to her. So clearly, like, you meet him and you're like, okay, this is a troubled character. He's got something going on. And he's a first character. So yeah, I also thought he was going to be the main character.
Yep. And who else? There's two other main characters, because we got Robbie, who shows up last. So we'll get to him. He's the most recognizable actor. Tom Hanks, JJ.
We meet Kate, who also has some issues going on. Her mother's, her father had left. And so there's issues there. And I remember, I don't have the complete notes. Maybe you do. I hear you took a lot of notes.
I did take a lot of notes during my viewing of Mazes and Monsters. Yeah, she's, her father did die. Her character seems to be there to almost comment on sexism in the 80s, I felt like.
Okay.
Like, she kind of she's an outsider. All these characters are supposed to be outsiders. She has a line. This is something that I was hoping they would actually follow through with. When you meet her, it's her and her mom talking about how her father's left. And her mom, I think, is really trying to relate to her like they're friends kind of things. And Kate actually has a line. She's talking about college. She mentions how bright girls scare them. She's talking about how she has trouble connecting with people. She also wants to be a writer, which is the shorthand of film to show that somebody's an outsider. But there's an aspect to her where it almost seems, and this sounds non-progressive to say now, but it seems progressive for the time that they would put a female in the group, a woman in the group to play this game, which I think happened a lot, but I don't think it was viewed that way. We're going to get into it a bit. This movie has a weird view of role-playing games. But I don't know. I think she's there. She has trouble. All these characters have trouble relating to people. And I thought it was at least interesting that the angle that she kind of had with that was that the fact that she was an attractive, intelligent girl made it difficult for people to approach her. Did you get any of that? Am I pulling too much out of the character with that?
No. That's kind of what I recall as well. Yeah.
And that's interesting. They don't really follow through with it much, but
no, but they did establish, and they do this with everyone. They do establish that there's some quirkiness to each character, something difficult in their lives, whether it's
What's the fourth character? There's a character named Daniel. What's his quirk? What's his difficulty?
So Daniel it's another parent relationship issue. In fact, they're all kind of parent relationship issues.
Sure.
Daniel does not want to follow in his father's footsteps. I can't recall what business line it is, finance or something. They're very proper, and you've got to, you're wasting your life. And Daniel just wants to make games. He wants to become a gamer. I guess it was an early version of video games he was talking about.
That
at one
was
point.
interesting. That was already a career people wanted. His dad, by the way, is Fox Mulder's dad, Peter Donnet.
Fox Mulder should have come back and investigated this situation, as opposed to who ends up investigating the situation.
Yes, we'll get to that in a moment. But to look at Daniel for a minute, he wants to program games. He's also sort of a blonde Aryan jock.
Yeah, which is a problem for him.
I was going to say, if I remember the 80s properly, blonde Aryan jocks had it pretty easy, but it's hard for him.
Yeah. Nobody can approach him. You'd think that he was great with women, but he's not.
He sleeps around with women, though.
Does he?
I think he says he's sleeping around because women never take him seriously.
Oh.
It's a weird twist on Kate's thing, and yet somehow I'll accept it as a characteristic in Kate. Daniel seemed very entitled as a problem child. Like, he didn't actually... It sucks. It sucks to not have a parent supporting you, but I don't know. Did you like him as a character?
I don't think there were too many characters in this that I really liked. But no, I didn't really connect with Daniel or care for Daniel.
Did you connect with any of these four, though?
I mean, I guess I kind of connected with Robbie because it's Tom Hanks.
So that's not the character, that's an issue of
that
the
might
actor.
be it. But I mean, he had the most sort of seemingly realistic. He had a lot more going on. So we meet Robbie fourth. He also has issues with his parents. His parents clearly hate each other. His mother's a drunk. The father is just military. What am I trying to say? Militaristic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I don't know if we learn it when we first meet him, but we learn it eventually. He has an older brother that has disappeared. And so, I guess I might have related to Robbie more because he seemed like the most normal in a way, like the most realistic, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I guess, but again, I think it's because he's Tom Hanks. I didn't like any of these characters. Right off the bat, this movie reeks of like sensationalized television, which isn't new.
I mean, that's what TV movies of the week were, right?
I guess, but yes, you're right. It's just watching this now and watching a movie that's supposed to be about 4 kids. I mean, this is clearly written by adults. I think it's written for adults because this isn't how kids act. I feel like they're trying to create kids to fit into this plot a little bit. It's weird because when I think of the 80s, I think of things like Square Pegs, John Hughes movies, Heather's movies, which this movie reminds me why those were groundbreaking because, whether or not they were fully accurate towards how we as kids were talking, they at least gave complex voices to their characters and interactions to their characters. And I think this movie really struggles to even give their 4 characters any sort of voice, which becomes complicated because, again, this is a TV movie. So, at some point there's going to be some drama, there's going to be a message. And I don't know if the movie knows what side it wants to fall on. Yeah,
there's a lot of different angles happening.
Well, what happens? Like, they all kind of meet together in college, and 3 of them, Kate, JJ, and Daniel, had gone to college the previous year, and they kind of formed a role-playing game circle. And Robbie kind of comes to the party, and he's comes to the college, excuse me, and he's anxious, he's quiet. But the role-playing game is kind of their secret language.
Yeah.
And how did you feel about this once they start talking about the role-playing game and they're throwing terminology around? How did that sit with you?
It seemed, kind of forced. I mean, they couldn't quite say. I mean, I would assume that the writers here did some research with Dungeons and Dragons, but they couldn't quite use Dungeons and Dragons terms.
Do you think they did?
I mean, maybe they read the back of the book.
The book. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I talk about Raskolnikov and Crime and Punishment and all that. But
yeah. So it did seem a little contrived and silly. And then when they did their first game, and it was so serious,
Yeah, they light all these candles.
Yeah.
They set up their board. They each introduce their character in the voice. I am so-and-so, such and such, and, this is
Which I
my
thought were
tragic
very
story.
bland names, so-and-so and such and such.
It's weird that two of them would be named so-and-so.
Right.
You would think there'd be some variety to it.
I am the maze controller, the god of this universe I have created, the absolute authority. Only I know the perilous course which you are about to take. Your fate is in my hands.
I am Glacia the fighter. I have great strength and courage, strong armor, many weapons, and I have won the mighty talking sword of Lothia.
I am Freelick, the frenetic of Glossamere, the cleverest of all sprites. Not so strong, with enough tricks and powers to take me far and keep me safe.
I am Pardieu, a holy man. In reaching the 9th level, I have acquired many magic spells and charms, the greatest of which is the graven eye of Timur. But I also have a sword, which I only use should my magic fail me.
They're taking it very seriously, and while I found that laughable, there might be some truth in that.
Sure.
I mean, that might be how some people approach it, but it didn't feel, because I've played Dungeons and Dragons and my own experience of it, it didn't feel like this is how it works. This is how the game is presented, but it's how they present that. I mean, coupled with them being in college, did you find their life at college relatable? Did it seem realistic how they were existing in the dorms?
No, not at all.
No.
There was a very disturbing section where Robbie, who had his own dorm room.
It is a dormitory, right? It's not apartments they live on an on-campus
I got
dorm.
the impression it's a dorm. I mean, the rooms apparently are huge.
Yeah, no, it's a very nice setup.
It's like they have a living room and a bedroom and a bathroom.
Which you had in college. You had the suites that surround like a
We had
common
the suites,
space.
but these weren't suites. These were just one room. This was behind one door. It wasn't like you went into the door and then you had access to an area and then your bedroom was off to the side. This was one person's thing. And Robbie at one point starts dating Kate.
Yeah, Robbie and Kate very quickly kind of relate. I mean, I think that's how we learned that Robbie had an older brother who went missing, because that's their shorthand for falling in love. He tells her about a tragedy in his life.
Yeah.
Which I guess is believable. I mean, college worked that way. You share something, it brings you closer.
I could see that. But like the environment themselves, I mean, we never go to a class, if I'm remembering that correctly. And then Robbie has this whole interaction with Kate where he has changed his bed from, I guess, a single to a double somehow so they could move in together. And
Shortly after they started, one song montage after they started dating.
Yeah, the love theme from Mazes and Monsters. I hope you have a cut of that at some point.
It's surprisingly hard to find. I actually had it written down what the title was, and I'll have to look that up because I've lost that.
Good. So I mean, it's like that's not a thing you do in a college dorm. So that was weird and out of place.
But it's also the first sign that maybe something's up with Robbie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I took it that way as well. But Kate didn't seem... I don't know. It was hard to judge if Kate was like taking that as a sign that Robbie's fucked up or that, no, it's too soon.
Well, I think it's that because they break up, don't they?
I don't know if they do break up immediately around that point. They break up after Robbie starts to lose it.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, let's track this because from how the movie began, I thought JJ was going to be the kid in trouble, which kind of makes sense. He's the younger one. I felt like he was sort of the outcast with his... He seemed to have difficulty interacting with people. He seemed to be almost robotic in the ways that he lived. And he has a monologue partway through the movie about suicide.
With his bird.
He's talking to his bird. He has a
If I
parrot
remember, yeah.
whose name I'm forgetting. Oh,
Merlin.
for all these notes. Is it Merlin? Oh,
Of course,
thank
it's
you.
Merlin.
Well, I guess that makes sense. So they're giving us some signs that maybe he's got some trouble. And I thought that, I mean, I thought he was a tragic figure. I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
The kid who portrayed him maybe did a good job. I don't know. But it's just, he seems so sad and sullen until he wasn't.
Yeah, it just flipped. It was really like just a plot device to get you to think one thing and then spring Robbie on you.
I guess so, because they play their role-playing games. He has his little suicidal monologue in a cave. Is that right? No, wait. He goes to a cave.
He has a monologue in his room alone, and then he was trying to think
Merlin
of...
is there.
Yeah, he's trying to think of a way to stand out, and he decides to go to the cave, likely to commit suicide in the cave.
That's what I don't want to say thought. That's what I was pushing for.
Yeah.
Caves are no laughing matter, I realize. But still.
Right. But instead, the cave impresses him so much, he decides to live.
And from that point on, he's he's not okay, because what does he do? He suggests that they role play in the caves.
Yeah. And he takes it a little step further, too. Instead of sitting there and just playing the game in the cave, he makes the cave the maze that they actually physically have to go through, and he puts some props in there.
He puts a skeleton
He puts
in there.
one prop in there. I think we're supposed to presume that it was much more elaborate than that, the way they've talked about it, but the budget could only do one fake skeleton.
Also, a kid in college at that point could probably also only do one skeleton. How elaborate could this game really be?
Right.
His voice is being broadcast around, but they all do go to role play in costume, LARP as it's called, there in the caves. And that's when I think we get a little hint, or a little more of a hint, that something with Robbie, Tom Hanks, might be a little off, because Robbie encounters a monster of sorts.
He does. A real life monster.
Now, what did you think of that? Because when he comes out, I thought, okay, that's a great costume.
I mean, the effect wasn't superb, but TV movie from the 80s.
But I was thinking that's JJ. That's part of the maze.
Yeah, at first I thought maybe that was arranged, but then as it progressed, and trick of the camera, and they would flash to Robbie, and you'd see nothing is actually there, and then you'd flash back to what Robbie was seeing, and there's the monster. They didn't make it too spooky for too long, or too unknown for too long, I guess. But yeah, you could see that Robbie actually got into it, I guess, got really into the game and started to see monsters, called for his friends. They came, and they thought he was just role playing. And, but you and I, as the viewers at home, knew that, nope, something else was going on.
Something's up with Robbie. He's nuts. That's sort of where I guess the movie takes off. But that's weird, because up to that point, it seems like JJ is the character we're going to fall. It seems like we're supposed to be surprised by Robbie's turn, that we can't believe what happened to Robbie. And how does it progress? I mean, like from there.
Yeah, Robbie starts to have dreams, and the dreams give him clues as to what his quest is. His character is a holy man. And so he needs to be more pious and just become one with his quest. And he starts to, in real life, outside of the game, be his character.
Pardieu. Pardieu.
Who are you?
I am the Great Hall. Once you gloried in killing, now you are of a higher level. To attain the highest level, you must be holy in all your life. You must be pious, humble, celibate.
But I walk with Glacier the fighter.
The holy man must walk alone.
No, wait, please. Great Hall, I need you.
When you are worthy, then you will come to the two towers and be one with the Great Hall.
They keep playing the game, I guess, once in a while, but Robbie takes it too far. He starts drawing maps and writing down clues about the Great Hall and the Twin Tower or something to that effect.
All your favorite fantasy terms.
Yeah. And so eventually, at some point, I believe it was a Halloween costume party, he just leaves. He just disappears. And it becomes a whole big thing. So there's like another, 20 to 40 minutes of trying to figure out what happened to Robbie. At least it felt that long. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, we're watching this kid break down. We're watching Robbie fall apart. And it's Tom Hanks. So, is it good? Is he good in this?
There's some good moments. There's some Tom Hanks moments in there. There's also some bachelor party Tom Hanks moments in there.
This movie aired end of 82, December 28th, I think was the air date, 1982. So that's after Bosom Buddies aired. That's after 2 seasons of Bosom Buddies on TV. Probably right before Bachelor Party, if I'm guessing on the year. It's well before Splash. Where is Tom Hanks at this point in his career? Because I liked him at the beginning. I thought he was charming. I'm not convinced he's playing a kid breaking down very well.
Yeah, it's a lot of blank stares. I thought, and maybe I'm jumping too far ahead. If I am, let me know. But I thought, there's some good moments where he ends up. If I'm giving anything away here, he ends up in New York City. This is where we find him.
Let's hold on. But I know it's answering my question. But to get to that, we do have to find the heart of the story, which is once he goes missing, when Robbie goes missing, they call in a detective to try to find him. We saw this. The movie opens with this, and then they flash back to it again. But they bring in the law. They bring in a researcher. They bring in someone basically there to start spouting the seduction of the innocent sort of reefer madness bullshit about how dangerous Mazes and Monsters is.
Yeah.
He's there to explain the game, to explain to the audience the evils of the game, and I feel like he's there to pretty much damn this role-playing game.
Yeah, he's pretty dismissive of it. And yeah, that's how I see it too.
Going into this, did you figure that was the angle of this was going to be a cautionary tale about role-playing games?
Not really.
No.
To be honest, until you said that. You kind of brought that angle in just as we were conversating about it. To the point, honestly, where the way you had described it, I almost thought Mazes and Monsters was going to be like a documentary about role-playing games. So I'm pleasantly surprised that it wasn't.
Do you remember this happening in the 80s? Do you remember there being a panic towards role-playing games?
I don't remember the role-playing game panic. I remember some other panics. I remember Satanic Panic.
What was Satanic Panic?
Just that there were these cults and groups of Satan worshipers almost everywhere. That's how I grew up. I just believed that was, if there was woods somewhere, there were Satan worshipers in those woods.
Where were you hearing about that? What was forming this opinion?
Gosh, it's hard to say. I think I caught some things on the evening news. I think
this was in the news.
Yeah, it was in the news. There were articles in the newspaper,
which you were reading at 9 and 10.
Well, the comics, and you see Satan. You check that out, I guess.
So there was a high and low about Satanic Panic.
And then I think the kids. I think there was just rumors and kids telling stories and stuff.
Well, but kids will tell stories. That happens.
Yeah.
And there is something to that too. I don't remember this, but there apparently was a big controversy towards these role-playing games. In fact, this movie, Mazes and Monsters, is an adaptation of a book by the same name by Rona Jaffe from 1981. And that book is based on a is based on a real occurrence, a real event that happened in the 70s.
What was that event?
Oh, did you not read about it? I can tell you.
Yeah.
So the author Rona Jaffe wrote this book in 81. She based it on a story. from the mid 70s, late 70s, I think 78, 79, an account of a kid, 16-year-old kid named James Dallas Egbert the third. He was a student at Michigan State. So I kind of thought that JJ would have been based on that from how I was reading it. But he was an advanced placement college kid who, in August of 1979, went missing from the school. No one was hearing from him. No one had seen him for days. So his parents, long distance, hired a private investigator by the name of William Deere. And what this investigator uncovered was that this kid, James Dallas Egbert III, was a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan, and that apparently he was involved in these live-action role-playing sessions that took place, strangely, in these subterranean steam tunnels, kind of underneath the college.
Okay.
And this story kind of caught the nation's attention, because it was this kid missing, and people were wondering if it was possibly foul play. And how somehow it came out that, he was a fan of Dungeons and Dragons. And so that game was sort of brought to task. They were saying that they were accusing this game of being capable of like staging scenarios where impressionable kids could take things too far.
Yeah.
And I think, this movie is dramatizing that. But an important thing to remember, I feel like, specifically, with the whole media storm that follows, is that the private detective who kind of came to this actually knew nothing. This William Deere character knew nothing about Dungeons and Dragons. He was surmising bits from what he heard. And there's a scene at the start of this movie where a detective is kind of explaining what Mazes and Monsters is. And if you know the game Dungeons and Dragons, that explanation doesn't tell you anything. He was grasping at things based on a little information, but like the nation and parents and religious groups and everything, they kind of took this as what the game represented. I mean, do you get we were already saying, this movie isn't a good representation. It's just kind of like this guesswork, but it makes it seem like it's such a threatening kind of game. Because how does the movie progress?
So the detective comes in and starts to ask questions, and the other three, JJ, Kate, and Daniel, don't want to tell him about the role-playing game necessarily.
So they are scared about it.
Yeah, they had to empty out the cave to make sure that there was no sign of them being in there, because they thought Robbie might be dead inside the cave at first. But then they cleared everything out. They had to be anonymous when they gave different information. I think at some point they did give him an anonymous packet about Mazes and Monsters, thinking that would help them find Robbie. Now,
were you feeling the tension of this? Was this interesting to you?
Not at all.
No.
It was supposed to be.
Oh, yes, but as an audience member, what are you thinking watching this?
I'm just like to me, it's kind of pretty obvious where everything is heading before everybody figures it out. And so for me, it was just, I was trying to find, like you're saying, the point. Like, yeah, the detective is there to sort of, say, oh, this is the reason Mazes and Monsters is such a terrible game. It's
is
led
he
him.
A good detective and a heroic character?
No. That's the thing. It's like there's nobody to latch onto here as the voice of the movie. There's no theme. There's no
angle. Like, I don't.
Yeah, because you're mostly with the kids, so you're supposedly rooting for them, and so you're kind of on their side in this whole thing a little bit. The detective is just terrible. And so you're not really rooting for him. He's not actually solving anything. And I think the last we see him, he just says, yeah, he's probably dead.
I believe he does. I think that's his decision.
Yep.
But what do the kids do then?
The kids eventually start to put some clues together. They find his map, which isn't a map of the game, so they think it might be something else, and they look at it, and it's to search for the Great Hall. And then click, oh my God, his brother who went missing, his name was Hall.
Oh, that's right.
So they put that together, and then he disappeared And I think he called or sent a letter once to Robbie from New York City. And then you've got the two towers, which they do mention Lord of the
World
Rings.
Trade Center towers.
Well, yeah. So they mentioned Lord of the Rings. It's like, oh, could it be that? But then they're like, no, it's New York City. And so they end up trying to, they kind of are closing in on it. But before they can even figure it out, Robbie calls them. So they figured out, and it's really, again, for the audience, they kind of figured out. So then, boom, we jump to New York City, and now we join Robbie, who has been off screen for like 15, 20 minutes.
And who is hilariously walking around New York, almost getting mugged.
Yeah.
Stabbing a guy.
Because he's delusional. It's the monster again.
Mm-hmm. A guy who was trying to mug him. So
yeah,
he's not going to jail. But yeah, he's snapped. He's cracked. This is what I thought the movie was going to be about. He can't separate fact from fantasy. He can't separate his life in the game from his life in the real world. And it only seemed plausible because that's where I thought the film was going. It's not really set up well. It's not really presented well. But the other three kids eventually make their way to New York to rescue him, I guess. And there's a lot of going up and down elevators. You see a lot of this elevator at the World Trade Center.
That I want to kind of, if I had the time and ability, and maybe I have the time, but I don't have the ability, to loop that 10-minute scene of no talking and just watching people go up escalators and elevators, then go down escalators and elevators, then realize he is actually up, so they go back up escalators and elevators. If I could just loop that, it would be like a Zen thing to watch for me.
And after the 40 minutes of that, they do find him on the roof?
Yeah. So he's on the roof, and I can't remember what his purpose there was, if he was going to use a spell to fly or something, and they talk him down, and they talk him out of the delusion and into the reality, and they get him some help. They get him home. And we cut to a year later or something to that effect. And the three of them, JJ, Kate, and Daniel, are going to visit Robbie.
Seems kind of optimistic. They're here to see their friend. He had a rough time, but they're going to see him.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And they meet his mom, who's at the door, and she's like, oh, he's so much better. He's in the back. He's going to love seeing you guys. Things are going great. And it's weird, and I made this, I thought about this. It's like, that's not the mom from the beginning. She was a terror. She was an alcoholic. She was screaming and yelling. She didn't like anything that was going on in her life. So it was like weird that was how she reacted. But it's a year later. People change. The dad's not around. And then they go back to the lake, the pond where I first saw this scene.
Oh, yeah, this is the clip that you remember.
Yeah.
Robbie. Oh, you look terrific.
Yeah, you really do.
Freelick! Aren't you dead? Didn't you die when you leaped into the pit?
Hey, come on, Robbie, stop fooling around.
It is you, Freelick. You have been restored to the living. Whoever did that is a great holy man. A greater holy man even than I. Oh, Glacia, nimble too. Perhaps you are preparing for yet another quest?
Oh, Robbie.
Glacia, has someone placed a spell of forgetfulness on you? I am Pardieu, the holy man. I've had many strange encounters since last we met. A great dragon, a Gorville. This is a good place to stay.
Some fine Tom Hanks accent work.
Yeah. And they're like, oh no, dude, he's not better. What the fuck? And he wants to finish the quest, and he knows of a place yonder past the breach. And slowly they go with it and give him one more quest, and they play the game one more time with him. And I can't even quite remember how it ends after that. I think she wrote a book about it. No, she had already written the book about it.
I don't know. I think they just say, and we played one less game with this deluded individual who somehow is only in the game now.
Yeah, he's only in the game now. His mother, I'm presuming, is still an alcoholic and also delusional. And yeah, it just sort of ends that way. But we can guess what happens, but we don't know. I guess he just lives that way forever.
So what's the point of this movie? What's its takeaway? What's its stance?
I don't know. I think, there is that hint of that this game is a problem and this is a warning. But it's not much of a warning because 3 other people played the game and turned out just fine and wrote a book.
Yeah, but I think we're supposed to be attached to Robbie. Thank you, the Tom Hanks character. And I think I was kind of surprised by that ending because I thought that it was going to be like friendships help them and he gets help. But yeah, I do think suddenly at the end of the movie, it's as if that detective from before leaned into whoever was writing and saying, by the way, this is garbage. This game is going to get them. And I do think this movie, and this is what I find odd, is the people who were talking, the friends of ours and stuff who said they remember this movie were scared. One of them actually said was scared of Dungeons and Dragons for a few years, scared off of it.
Sure.
Because of this film.
Yeah. Well, because it is not a great film, but it's good enough for kids. It's going to. Is this
aimed at kids?
It's it's not aimed at kids. But if a kid watched it, it would frighten them. It's not going to frighten us. It doesn't bother us to watch this. But I think it could bother a kid because, you are seeing monsters that aren't there. They might not be the scariest looking things, but that's a frightening concept. And you are seeing a person break down and go from living in this fantasy world to seeing monsters and attacking them and cutting people and stabbing people in real life, and then dropping out of it and being covered in blood and not know how he got to New York City and calling his friends and crying. And for a kid, that's pretty intense stuff. So I can see how that would affect a kid. And that's what it's unfortunate that this wasn't one of our retro shocks. Because if we had gone back to it, we might have had the same scenario where, oh, wow, it really bothered me as a kid.
Now, do you think any of the impact of it comes from it being based on something that happened, being based on a real event?
I don't know if it did at that time because I didn't know about that event. Had I seen this movie, I wouldn't have known it was based on a real event.
Oh, see, I thought that was a big part of the promotion.
I don't know if it was, and if I saw that promotion, then maybe it would have had an effect, but I couldn't tell you.
Because what happened with the original disappearance, several weeks passed that James Daniel Egbert III remained missing. Eventually, William Deere, the investigator in the real story, received a telephone call. And in it was from James, and he revealed his current location. William Deere, the detective, went and retrieved James, brought him back to family custody, about 7 weeks after he went missing. And, in that sense, the detective did his job, brought him back. Tragically, the following summer of 1980, James Daniel Egbert III, this Dungeons and Dragons junkie who had gotten lost in the fantasy ways of role-playing, took his own life. Tragic and sad, not surprising, but he took his own life. And what is surprising from this is that the detective, William Deere, could have anticipated this. He could have probably even helped stop this. He could have done something to help out with this, because it turns out when, in the real story, when William Deere went to bring James back, James confessed to him that he initially went missing due to a failed suicide attempt. He had overdosed on some sedatives, and when he woke in the morning and he was still alive, he went into hiding at a friend's house. So once that manhunt, for him, intensified, he remained hidden, kind of moving from friends to friend's house, and eventually took off to another state where he finally contacted William Deere that he was ready to return. But when he confessed all this to the detective, when he told him all this, he asked that the detective not share the information about it being a suicide attempt, and if he could instead keep it a secret, which the detective did. until publishing a book 4 years after James' death. I mentioned that, or I bring that up in watching this and researching it, because I think that's indicative of how we try to blame concepts, fiction and entertainment with these panics. You know, Elvis will make you a slut, or the Teletubbies have a gay agenda or whatever. And this movie, I think, is doing that. This movie is just as lazy as William Deere in that it sets up a story maybe about kids in college, and hey, they come together, but hey, he's got a problem, but hey, they save him. But at the end, it's kind of like the game broke him. And I don't get that. You know, that's not fair to the game. That's not fair to the concept of the game. And it's not even fair to the story that you're telling.
I think the movie, whether it meant to or not, also is showing that the real world is to blame.
How is it though?
Again, I don't know if it meant to, but when we meet all of these kids, they have family issues. They have issues with their parents. They have family issues going on, including Robbie. Robbie has other issues going on in the real world in that his brother has disappeared, left without a trace, left without saying goodbye, somebody he looked up to. And so there's that problem in his life as well. And the game was there, and the game in this story, we keep saying the game broke him.
Mm-hmm.
But the game was somewhere to go because in his real life, nobody else was helping him. Nobody was recognizing the issues that he was dealing with. I'm sure he wasn't going to therapy. Nobody suggested that. Instead, you just have a dad who's constantly yelling and demanding of him. You have a mother who is drunk and yelling and fighting with the father. Nobody's paying attention to Robbie. Nobody is trying to acknowledge the fact that my brother, the crazy parent's son, has disappeared. So there's a lot going on in each of these characters' lives that pushes them to the game. And then Robbie has more going on and more issues and more problems, and he just couldn't take it anymore. And the game kind of was an escape for him, and he took it too far. But I don't see, if I'm just looking at the movie itself, I don't see it as the game being the problem. I see it as nobody, just like you were saying, that detective didn't do what a person should try and do when he sees somebody with problems and try and help them as best they can, whatever that might be. Nobody was helping Robbie in the real world. And so I see, again, whether it intended to or not, there's a clear message in here that I'm picking up that the real world needs to be addressed because it could lead to suicide and problems and issues.
I mean, I'd like to think that. I'd like that interpretation of it better. I think this movie is out to make it scary. But I'm very confused by the ending because it's uncomfortable to watch the three friends accept Robbie's mindset and play along with it. That is the one point where I'm like, well, that maybe you don't indulge that delusion right now. But that is how the movie ends.
Yeah, there was a scene, and I wrote it down, that I think, not a scene, I'm not even sure what scene this was set in, but there was a line of dialogue that I think was the mission statement of the movie. But even this mission statement, as I'm rereading it, is kind of ambiguous. I wrote this down. The most frightening monsters are the ones that exist in our minds.
Well, what does that mean?
Exactly. To me, it seemed like, yeah, this is the message that they want to get across, but it's still wholly open to interpretation. Like, what does that mean? It could mean that, Robbie is dealing with these demons, and that's what's in his mind, and that's what the real monsters are. Not this game, but the fact that he's got parents that are driving him nuts and a brother that's disappeared, and nobody is helping him cope with that in the real world. But I don't think that's what the point of the movie was. I do think it's more what you're going to.
Is it weird to find it laughable? Is it weird that I got much entertainment? I watched this movie by myself and I just talked at it the whole time and mocked it.
Well, I mean, it's not a great, well done movie. There are lots of silly, lame things going on. I think at the heart of it, there's kind of a neat idea, but it's just not executed very well.
I don't know. I'm not sure what to make. I'm not sure why we watched this for the show now.
But we did, Tim.
We did.
We did watch it.
And you listened to it, everyone. Jokes on all of you. But you want a couple more jokes on you if you like listening. Oh, my God. Wow, I'm all out of water, too. Look, that's our show. That's what I'm going to say. Man. And if you want to hear us not cough through something or not discuss a role-playing game TV movie, then check out 20th Century Pop at NAHPods, NAHPods.com, the Not a Hologram podcast website. There you can always find the most recent episodes streaming, as well as links to all of our past episodes. Plus, if you liked the show or thought you did and want to like it again, you can subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, multiple podcast routes. Do that. That's always helpful. That way you get a new episode every week or every other week. And on the off weeks, we do reruns. Bob, this is going the best it could go.
Ever. The best it's ever gone.
Yeah. People can follow us to tell us that, yeah, that was pretty great on Twitter at 20popcast. They can also follow us on Instagram to see pictures of how well it went. Also at 20popcast. Bob, what would you say at this point? Holy
I'll say
fuck
my
is
usual
what I
thing.
would say. What the fuck just happened?
What?
What? I derailed everything. But what would you say at this point?
I would say that we like to end the show the same way we begin it, but also...
But we didn't.
I like to hear from people. I don't often, but I'd like to hear from people. I'm at RH Canning on Twitter. If you want to reach out to me directly or our 20 Popcast Twitter feed, let us know if you saw this movie as a kid. We've already heard from some folks. We'd love to hear from more. Your take, and you can try and watch it now and see if it lives up to the fear that it may have brought you as a child.
Yes, on Amazon Prime. It's also free to watch officially on YouTube, just with some commercials. So if YouTube needs a little promotion, there you go. Jesus.
There you go. And they're not paying us a thing.
No, nor should they. Judging from the preceding hour. No need.
Someday we'll record these, Tim. I'll put up my phone here. I'll record my half, and you can record your half, and we can put this on YouTube. We can actually show people the magnificence of recording this podcast.
Or we could cut in some magnificent footage of someone recording a podcast, and then just dub ourselves over that.
That's a better idea.
That's a great idea.
You know what I would love actually someday, Tim?
To restart this episode? You got it. Let me hit the right. No, what would you love someday?
I would love for you to take one of our podcasts, whatever episode fits best, and dub it over a loop of people going up and down escalators and elevators for 50 minutes. That would be great.
All right. And relevant. I have the time. If only I had... I'm not going to say the talent. I'll just say talent. Are you ready?
I think I'm ready, sir.
Are you ready?
Yes.
I don't know if you can tell. I got closer to the mic.
I could tell.
You can't? Okay, so it gets louder.
It does.
Okay. What if I move further away like this? Does this sound any different?
That sounds like you're closer.
I was.
Yeah.
I was close. I was lying. All right. Well, I'm going to keep it at my normal distance because that probably works best. Unless you think this sounds better.
No, that doesn't sound better.